The stock market got absolutely shredded today after the inflation data came out. We talked about this so much in yesterday's video and how it was going to bring on so much volatility, and that's exactly what happened. Looking at the heat map today, it was absolutely insane. About 90% of stocks in the S&P 500 were red. So we don't see this level of selling pressure too often, but when it does happen, it brings on a whole bunch of opportunity in many different ways. So in this video, we're going to talk about what's happening in the market right now, the opportunities for tomorrow, and then just going forward in general. And then, of course, some other important things to be aware of as we still have a lot of big earnings on the schedule. So stick with us all the way to the end, Tom, but we have to talk about this market. It got shredded today and it was all over the place. So fill us in.
Mike, even Nvidia closed red. I'll say this. It was just barely red, down 0.17%. But oh my gosh, the overall market, that was one hell of a drop this morning. And Mike, the S&P 500 is no longer above $500. I was actually really happy yesterday that the SPY was able to break that. And then heading into close, I was like, man, heading into today, it looks kind of bearish there. And whenever that data came out, boy, oh boy, did that market end up falling. And whenever we go look at the data, it actually fell, but it wasn't like the inflation reading beat analyst expectations, though. The expectation was around 2.9% on the year-over-year inflation rate, and it ended up coming in at 3.1%, so a little bit higher than they thought. And then also the CPI reading was slightly higher, too. And, of course, this was plastered all over this morning. There were tons of articles all over CNBC showing the consumer price index jumping a little bit, too. And you can even see where some of the inflation is getting hit the most, like juice and drinks, car insurance, repair of households, sporting items, or sporting events. There's a bunch of stuff on this list, but overall, Mike, the big thing that I saw today is the FedWatch tool. We talk about this all the time. It looks like they're now pricing in a pause for May. Just a little while ago, they were pricing in like a 77% chance of a cut in March. So for it to be pausing now in May is a huge revelation for the market. Part of the reason why stocks have been rising so much is because people were thinking that the Feds were going to start cutting soon. And now that they're pushing this out, we can see today that definitely spooked the market a little bit.
Exactly. So long story short, everyone was partying like it's like it was the money printing days of 2020. Everyone was super hyped up because it sounded like the Federal Reserve was going to cut rates pretty quickly and everything was going to be all sunshine and rainbows. But as we all know, the biggest enemy of the economy and the Federal Reserve over the past 2 years has been inflation. And a lot of people basically had it, written off as like a sure thing that it was all under control. But as we saw today, inflation came in higher than expectations, just like Tom said, and that kind of threw a wrench into everyone's expectations. And people are like, wait a second, like we haven't won the war against inflation yet, and stocks are ripping to the upside. Like, maybe I'll de-risk a little bit. And that's exactly what we saw happen. So basically, looking at the market right now, we are seeing a good amount of profit taking. And at the same time, you really shouldn't be too surprised about this. As we talked about in yesterday's video, we have the market, even looking at the call skew chart, Tom, at its most euphoric point in quite a while. Every single time we've seen calls get this expensive and everyone just load up on calls and pay this much for them, it ended up being pretty close to a top in the market. So pullbacks are normal. You shouldn't be afraid of them, and they're actually a very good thing because when you do see the market pull back, it makes for phenomenal intraday moves for options trades because the premiums rise a ton. So you see like just insane moves, like, hundreds of percent intraday. And at the same time, when stocks do pull back, that ends up being a great buying opportunity for long-term plays too.
Yeah, it really can. And I know that right now, obviously, like stocks are a little bit early, I think, for like a lot of long-term plays. We might need a little bit more pullback for that. But whenever we're looking at these short-term drops, it's creating a ton of good upside opportunities. And Mike, I actually got to give you a shout out because yesterday you talked about UVXY and the volatility index. And man, look at the volatility index today. The VIX itself got up to almost $18, like $17.95 at the top. Look at that huge green candle on the daily. Now, if that's the most volatility that we've actually seen going like back to, November to December. So we're actually seeing the most volatility that we've seen in a long time. And Mike, we've been hitting on this time and time again lately. So guys, let us know in the comments how you feel about the overall inflation reading today and what you think the Fed should do. Because I know a lot of people have some pretty strong opinions about that. But for the market tomorrow, Mike, I mean, there's so many opportunities out there. The SPY is sitting around this key like 490, 491 level. We'll have to see if that low of day can break again because I think the floodgates could start to open. But just keep in mind, today's drop was so drastic that we might see a slight uptrend and then more downwards volatility after.
There we go, and we'll talk about some of those good opportunities in just a minute, but we have to talk about the earnings lineup for the week. Looking at this week's calendar, we can see a lot of growth stocks reporting. DraftKings and Coinbase will be some of the most popular, and they report on Thursday, but there's a smaller stock today that's just going ballistic in after hours. And that is Lyft. It's like, I guess you could say the worst version of Uber is up 50% in after hours after they beat on earnings and gave good guidance. But long story short, Tom, this stock is definitely ripping, so keep a close eye on it. But at the same time, it is one of those stocks out there that's hasn't been doing the best, you can say.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's good to see them, doing well on the EPS, the revenue slightly beat. I'd say the big thing is that guidance, though, obviously. Whenever I go back and I look at Lyft on a daily chart, it's like, oh my gosh, this company's been all over the place the past couple of years. Like, look at all this chop. And now in after hours, it's kind of like right back to the top of that chop zone around $20. So unless it can like really get a good break above 20, just be careful with it tomorrow, but definitely have your eyes on it because we saw last week with some stocks like ARM that they can definitely keep going for a few days on moves like that.
So with the stock like this one, it is all a game of momentum. If it's just powering higher come tomorrow morning, there's opportunity for scalps. But at the same time, if it slows down a little bit, then you might just want to find a new setup. But it's up 50% in after hours, so we figured we'd cover it. But let's start talking about the fun stuff for today, which is some setups for tomorrow, which is ultimately what everyone wants to hear about, right? But one stock I'm watching very closely is UVXY, and like Tom said, I talked about this one quite a bit in yesterday's video, and today's breakout was just fantastic, so that was awesome to see. But basically, in market situations like we're in now, where you see a lot of selling pressure come in pretty quickly, that can end up continuing for multiple days, just like we see, with like earnings continuation sometimes. So basically what I am looking for is as we look at the market overall, and I guess you could say more specifically SPY, if we continue to see that constant level of pressure on the low of day and just overall bearishness, just like we saw almost all day long today, then I will be watching UVXY to the upside. When people are panicking, when volatility is increasing, when everything's selling off, UVXY does very good, as we saw today. So again, I will have a close eye on it for tomorrow.
Man, Mike, I wanted to call this one out, but since you talked about it yesterday, I couldn't do it, right? Like I had to let you have it again. But but I actually saw another stock today that had some bad news, and I know we're talking about a lot of bad news here today, but man, Boeing had some bad news. They ended up falling down to 202.50. If they can break below that tomorrow, I'm going to watch for a push back down to around 200. They had a pretty bad article about some jet sales and just overall, they've been seeing a lack of production lately because of all the issues that have been happening. So just keep your eyes on Boeing. If they end up breaking under 202.50, then look at some puts.
Sounds good. That stock has been all over the place over the past couple months, but I'll keep an eye on it. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is Apple. And this one was relatively negative today, but it wasn't anything too crazy, at least as of yet. But I'm watching it for a potential breakdown below the $183.50 level. If we see a break below that, and especially if the market continues lower, I think this one can definitely flush. Of course, it's a big tech stock. It's a powerhouse. Everyone knows Apple, and most people love them. But looking at Apple, they do not have the same level of strength that some of these other stocks like Nvidia or AMD or SMCI or even ARM have. Like, Apple has been a lot more flat and choppy than a lot of other big tech stocks, which will make it easier to play to the downside. So again, I'm watching Apple to the downside tomorrow. I would like to see the market also down, and I would like to see a break below $183.50.
Yeah, and hopefully in pre-market, we get close to that, so then in open there can be like a big run or something, but I'll definitely have that level on the radar as well. And Mike, I know we always talk about TLT, and I actually have to watch this one for tomorrow too. Whenever we go look at yields today, like US 10Y, it exploded. You go out to a daily chart of US 10Y, and you can see that, there's just a huge green candle today exploding up above recent resistance. So whenever I see this, I like this move. Hopefully we see a nice continuation out of this, and then TLT might actually continue down. That was a pretty bad move today. I'm not saying it's going to get all the way back down to lows of like 84 or 85, but I do think that it could go down a little bit in the short term. So just keep watching it. Again, it was like pushing that low of day almost all day.
All right, sounds good. Well, Tom, it is now about that time for the momentum plays, so let's get right into them. And with today's first one, we have Affirm to the downside.
AFRM, pretty bad move today. If they break under 38.50, then eye up those puts. And I like this one because they actually reported earnings last week.
All right, sounds good. With the next one, we have JP Morgan to the downside. And Tom, I'll tell you, a handful of bank stocks were getting taken to the woodshed today.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they definitely were. And I'll tell you what, if you are liking the bank stock plays, stick around for the big money play. You guys are going to like that one coming up soon. But man, if it gets under 172.60, just under that low of day, then look at puts on JP Morgan.
All right, and now with the last one, we have a stock that was once loved by almost everyone, but has since been replaced by the chip stocks. And we're looking at none other than Tesla, right? This used to be everyone's favorite stock, but before you know it, everyone left Tesla and jumped on the Nvidia train. So, Tom, what levels do we have for this one?
Yeah, with Tesla here, go ahead and look at 182. There's a nice double bottom right around that pre-market low. So if it breaks under that, then eye up some puts. And to the upside, I actually like this intraday resistance right around like 185.30, just above 185 even. So if we can break 185.30, then look at calls.
Sounds good. So we have the upside level for calls, and we have the downside level for puts. This is with Tesla. Don't forget about the downside level with JP Morgan, and then the downside level with Affirm. These three stocks are on watch for momentum plays tomorrow. Basically, if they break through the levels Tom listed, then we are looking to ride that imbalance of buying and selling pressure. So keep a close eye on them for tomorrow. But Tom, as you hinted about just a couple minutes ago, we have a pretty interesting big money play today with none other than Bank of America. And basically today we saw the big money dump around $400,000 into some Bank of America put options. And when you hear this at first, you might think 400 grand, like, for a big money play, that's not too much, but the option is going to be a volatile one. So check this out. So it is the 30 strike put options that expire on March 28th of 2024. These options are pretty far out of the money, and the only reason the big money would really buy a trade like this is if they are at least somewhat concerned of this stock getting taken to the woodshed, right, in the short term, right? They're trying to protect themselves in the event of a big move to the downside. So long story short, these put options can act as a pretty decent hedge in some ways if the market tanks, but also, if we see just good weakness out of Bank of America in the short term, these puts will definitely be worth watching because it's pretty rare to see a big money trade where they go this far out of the money and in like a relatively short expiration date. So either way, keep a close eye on this one, but it's definitely one of those high risk, high reward trades, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I will say this one will have a little bit more risk to it, but in the short term, with the way we saw yields pop up and the way the market dropped back under 500 today, if we keep seeing this downside pressure coming into the economy and into the market, we will probably see these bank stocks start to jump down, especially as those yields, I think, go higher. That'll be a big negative for banks. So just keep your eyes on the bank stocks. That was a bad move today by Bank of America, down 2.59%. And I love that it's a short-term play. I don't necessarily love the strike. I think there's a chance that they could be shorting them, but then again, that's just the risk you would have to take here. And the last time that we moved in a big way with Bank of America, it popped up in 2 days from $30.50 up to 34. So, if the market does get negative here, we could get to 30 fairly quickly on this stock.
Yep, so keep a close eye on it. But one thing that is for certain right now is that volatility is here, and it's here to stay. It's not going away anytime soon. Honestly, all year long, between the election and everything else that is scheduled for the year, there should be some amazing opportunities, not only in the short term, but all year long. And Tom, nothing displays the crazy volatility that we have going on in the market right now more than Lyft in after hours. Check this out. Just a couple minutes ago, we were talking about how this stock was ripping to the upside, and now it pulled the reverse card, coming all the way back down. But either way, keep a close eye on this one for tomorrow. It is all over the place, and it is moving like I don't even know, Tom, like one of those like meme stocks.
It really is. Like, let me know in the comments where you guys think this one's going to end up. I would say maybe somewhere like $15 to $17, maybe somewhere in that range. But who knows, man? I mean, it might even go negative at this point with how big this is selling off. Like, that is pretty huge there. But, man, yeah, keep your eyes on Lyft. And, of course, like, as we look at the market, Mike, it's just be careful out there. I know that there's been a lot of bullishness lately, and a lot of people might have got burned today, and that's okay. Just have an open mind and, be ready to adapt your strategy a little bit here in the short term.
There we go. And then, Tom, we have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Jeremy, who has just been crushing it lately. As we can see by his screenshot, he only had one red day this month. So awesome job there. Great job. You've just been on fire lately. So definitely protect those gains, keep that risk managed, and keep on rolling.
Oh my gosh, Mike, 1,740% returns within 1 month. I mean, that is a pretty big February chart there. So congrats to you, Jeremy. I don't think that it's going to be pretty rare for someone to beat that, I think, this month. So,
yeah.
so congrats to you. And hey, I'm glad that you've been doing well since you started. Just like Mike said, keep that risk a little bit low.
Yeah, keep that risk managed, and at the same time, enjoy a nice steak dinner tonight. It looks like today was one of your best days yet. So awesome job, Jeremy. Keep up the great work, and keep on rolling. But, Tom, looking at the market right now, SPY is coming off of a pretty big selling day, which, it's nothing too crazy just yet, but it's big in a relative sense, given that it's been nonstop buying pressure since basically November, right? And we are currently in one of the strongest market increases in the past 50 years. As we talked about in just a couple of videos ago, we haven't seen the market rally this hard since 1972. 14 out of the past 15 weeks have been green. So there's a lot of craziness out there, and I'll tell you one thing, I am excited because the volatility is all that matters.
It really is. And, going into tomorrow, I think that if we really just sit here and we're patient, we wait for some of these big levels to break, we can catch some fire plays. Go back and rewind the video if you guys, want to go back over some good plays like with UVXY and Boeing and a couple others. Man, like Boeing has had some bad news. They're running back down around $200, so be careful there. And let's just hope really that the overall market just it just keeps up with the volatility, Mike, right? The thing that I don't want is I don't want a big chop fest up here around 500. If we reject off 500, we keep falling down, I think that we'll have a pretty cool next few weeks in the market.
Everyone hates the chop, right? Pick a direction market, and when we have that, there's a whole lot of momentum to, ride. So good stuff there. Last but not least, if you guys are new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. When you do, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. We post all the time. We go over important earnings, economic events, stocks to watch, projections for the week. Like, we have it all. We go over big money trades in every single video as well. So come join the Stocked Up crew. And besides that, everyone, let's keep up the great momentum and let's have an amazing rest of the week.